Morning, everyone. I've just started the webinar, so I'm just going to give people the opportunity now just to join in. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February webinar. Taking a slightly different approach this month. As you know, through our podcasts and our webinars, we like to bring you different voices, different topics, not just legal topics. So I'm absolutely thrilled today to be joined by Rosemary Ryan of training and leadership development company Represent. So Rosemary, it's fantastic to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma.
So today we're going to be talking about how we manage through times of uncertainty. And if we think about where we are in the start of 2023, whether it be recruitment issues, whether it be financial concerns, whether it be strikes and train rail strikes, getting our people to work, getting our product to the market. There are certainly issues for not just our leadership teams, but for our HR teams as well. So what I wanted to do today was to really look at some of those challenges, but also how we can develop ourselves as leaders and HR leaders into supporting the business and in particular supporting our people. So easier said than done, I know. So Rosemary, what's your view in terms of the clients that you're working with, but also where you see the state of our leadership population at the moment?
It's a great question, Emma. In terms of where is the leadership population at the moment, I think confused, tired, a lot of different influence is coming in on them, sort of both economically, both socially, both personally. I think people's mindset has taken a bit of a bashing over the last few years and are really needing a lot more sort of support. So certainly in our work, and we work with lots of different sectors, from sort of big sort of professional services to law firms to family-owned companies. I think leaders are having a tough time, and it's not so much what they need to do, it's how they need to operate, how they need to bring their teams with them. And I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So I think there's a lot of challenges facing all of us, and all of us joining today are probably feeling those challenges as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, often it rests, yes, on the shoulders of our leadership populations and our people leaders, but also our HR teams as well, doesn't it? Because they're often the ones that the leadership will turn to for answers. And what are you finding from sort of working with sort of HR teams as well?
I think what we're finding working with sort of HR teams is that managers are coming to you or coming to the HR teams for more and more support. How do I have those difficult conversations? How do I persuade people to come back into the office? What do I do if people want to carry on working from home? So I think there's a lot of really practical issues that they're coming to HR with. And I think it's also a challenge for the HR teams to push back some of that responsibility to the leaders and the managers, and get people managing the teams themselves. HR are not there to do the management bit, they're there to do the guidance, trusted advisor and support. So I think that's the challenge that sort of both sides of the party are having.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good kind of snapshot of where our people leaders are, and certainly our HR teams, when we think about the types of clients that we act for and the types of questions that we're getting in our practice as well. So thank you very much for that. So just a little bit of housekeeping just before we start. So just to say that we are live And also just to sort of say, you know, Boyce Turner, for those of you who don't know who we are a commercial law firm, full service commercial law firm. I'd say in the HR, in our employment team at the moment, we're doing lots of advice on redundancies and restructures, advice on the sort of HR day-to-day, you know, business of people management, particularly around absence management. And as Rosemary said, you know, getting people back to the office and how that looks. Doing a lot of training on equality and diversity, as well as those practical management skills as well. And also if you need any help with recruitment, so we've got, you know, our thriving immigration team as well. So lots of different aspects that we're working on with our clients and also across the firm. Yes, so let's get cracking. So what is it we're going to be talking about today in our session today? Well, firstly, we're going to be talking about how we motivate multi-generational teams. And what do we mean by having multi-generational teams? We're going to be having a look at why your role, whether your role is as a people leader or in HR, you know, how important you are in creating that right, you know, right culture, you know, there's that right environment where your people can, you know, thrive, and also where you can make the best impact. Then we're going to have a little talk around what we mean by psychological safety. Some of you may have come across this term. Certainly I'm seeing it more and more in terms of, you know, what I'm reading about. And also, you know, that important question and that sort of, you know, $64 million question, you know, how do we bring teams with us when we are wanting to make those difficult decisions? But I think first, Rosemary, what would be really helpful, I think, is to sort of focus on the challenges. So where are the challenges when we think about leading through times of uncertainty?
I think in terms of some of the challenges, there's many, aren't there? One is that sort of, if we could perhaps go onto the slide as well, looking at some of the challenges that sort of, you know, there's a lot of resistance around, I think. People are feeling that perhaps their needs are not being understood by others. Sometimes I think people are feeling that, why do I need to change the way that I work? So I think there's challenges personally for people. And also, when there's uncertainty, we all react in different ways. And that's based on our values, it's based on our history, it's based on our experience. So managers and leaders at the moment are having to work with all this uncertainty in the external world coming in, and people responding to it very differently. I think some people love it. Let's not forget that some people really enjoy change. They love that excitement, the difference, a chance to do things differently, a chance to be innovative. So I think we mustn't always think that managing through times of uncertainty is a negative thing. Some of us really enjoy that. And I think we need to encourage people to do that. But the other thing with change is that we all go through it at a different pace. And I think it's very easy sometimes for leaders to forget that they're further ahead in the change journey than their people are. And that's when I think HR has to come in very much about sort of trying to help the leaders understand they've got to take people with them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But people will move through change at different pace, in a different way, and need a lot of support as they do it. And that's why there's a lot of challenge on the HR teams, I think, at the moment. So I think there are a lot of challenges, but I think we're going to talk a little bit, aren't we, about sort of the different generations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think people do, you know, they do react differently to change. And often, as you've said, Rosemary, that depends on, you know, yes, your lived experience, yes, you know, your values, but also the way that we react to change can sometimes be around where we are in terms of the age sort of spectrums as well. And you and I have been doing some training around leading, you know, managing millennials, leading multi-generational teams. And I think you're absolutely right. This, you know, that sort of element of that generations does have an impact on how we respond, how we listen to change as well, because that's obviously important as well. So why is it, you know, firstly, what are the different generations? And secondly, I guess, how do their experiences impact upon the, you know, on the messaging? Rosemary's just frozen there on me. So basically you can see what the generations are on the slide there. And I think that, you know, generation Y, they you know, they're also called our millennial generation as well. And I think really, you know, you might find that you're in a situation where you're perhaps your boomers or your generation X. Your generation X are certainly ones where perhaps they are, you know, at a different stage in their careers. Perhaps they've been there, done that. You know, some of them potentially have got the t-shirt, but also potentially our boomers and our X's, you know, maybe they are at a stage in their careers where they haven't undergone a lot of change. Their career paths have been very steady, have been, you know, very linear in terms of, you know, starting with a business and then, you know, perhaps growing within their careers, changing. And certainly for a lot of individuals, they may never have changed their employer. And I think when you then sort of switch to maybe think about our millennials and certainly our Gen Zs, I think perhaps with this generation, they are much more in tune with having to change careers. A lot of individuals will be thinking about their careers in terms of portfolios. So maybe having, you know, the start of a career with one type of sector, maybe thinking of moving to another type of sector. So using their skills in maybe different industries, in different environments, rather than thinking, you know, I have always worked within this area and how then that looks and how then that works. So I think there are differences, I think, in the way that we process information. I think that can sometimes be different. And also thinking about our leadership and our managers, I think that, you know, often we find that, you know, they are in the sort of the boomers and the X generation, and obviously trying then to think about how we can put ourselves in the shoes of our individuals who are perhaps in a sort of, you know, a younger generation, and think, you know, how would they want to sort of, you know, hear the messaging and things like that. So how are the different generations divide? Yeah, I mean, you know, there are lots of different ways that we can sort of, you know, uncomfortably pigeonhole people. And I do hate to sort of put people in different pigeonholes, because I do think that actually you could be born in a particular, you know, a particular age or particular, you know, point in social history. But actually your mindset could be, you know, perhaps, you know, thinking about it, you know, in a much sort of, you know, younger method. So I think, you know, we need to be slightly careful about how we pigeonhole people.
Emma, can I come in there at all?
Yeah, of course you can, Rosemary.
Lovely. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very easy to pigeonhole people into these categories, but it's also, people have got different sort of priorities at different times, whether it's their retirement, paying the mortgage, their work-life balance. I actually asked my daughter this morning, what does she think about working in multi-generational teams? And she's sort of in her 20s. And she was really interesting. She actually said, well, I think, she said, younger people think faster, which was great to hear when, you know, that's your daughter speaking to you. Younger people think faster. Older people have got more experience. And the trouble is, neither party want to listen to the others always. And I think, you know, in some ways she was being a little bit harsh. But there is something there about our mindset. And I think all of us have got to be open-minded, be aware of our bias, be aware of our own attitudes, and be prepared to learn from different people. And difference is good. And I think multi-generational teams bring much more creativity and innovation than if we're all clones working together. So I think the more diverse the teams are, be it in terms of age, be in terms of personality, experience, thinking style, you know, it all plays a part. And I think, you know, in HR, we have a responsibility to help teams be more diverse and use the strengths of everybody. And leaders also have got that responsibility.
I think as well, I think, you know, we do tend to sort of dwell on differences, and I think you're right. I think the way that, you know, you hear messages and things like that, I think is different. But also, would you say as well that there are similarities? And actually, rather than looking at differences, but actually focusing on the similarities, don't we all want to be feel valued?
Yes.
Do we not all want to feel that we're all kind of working towards the same purpose? Do we not all want to feel that we're understood, that we're respected? And I wonder whether actually, rather than focusing on the differences, actually focusing on where we can actually all work together and how, perhaps we all want to feel.
And I think that's the responsibility of leaders, to bring their teams together around a shared purpose, a common purpose, accepting that people have different needs, and that's about their need to be included, their need to be appreciated, their need for control. We are all, I always think of teams almost like sort of a living organism, and leaders have got to be very agile and flexible to actually, how is the team showing up today? What's happening today? How's the team going to show up tomorrow? What do I need to do? And how do I flex my style to make sure everybody feels engaged in our common purpose and what we have to do? So I often think that the people skills are the hard bit of people's jobs, not the technical stuff, because these teams are different every day. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think and also when we think about change and bringing people, with us, I think that ability to have, to allow for questions, allowing that time for people to ask questions and knowing that obviously they will be listened to. That's what I do about being an empathetic manager, kind of, no question is a stupid question,
Absolutely. And I think that leads us in, as we're going to talk later, about sort of psychological safety. How safe do people feel in teams to bring their true self to work, to be able to challenge, to be able to ask questions? So yes, I think that sort of whole psychological safety piece is important. Should we take a look at that now?
No, I think that's really good. So let's sort of lead into that. And we've got there, a sense of being able to share and show one's true self without fear. And what, just in a nutshell, what is it that how you would describe psychological safety?
Yes, I think that's, I think on the slide there, that's a great definition. For me, it's feeling safe to be yourself and turn up your whole self at work with a sense of security, a sense of belonging, and that you are appreciated for you. So psychological safety, often we can tell when it's not there. So when it's not there, people don't feel comfortable to speak up. They don't say what they think. We get groupthink, we get lack of innovation. And often if there is a lack of psychological safety, people will leave and go where they feel they do fit and where they are appreciated. So if we want to retain our good people, we've actually got to make that effort to make them feel part of the team, part of the group. So if you imagine, if you're listening to this today as a leader or a manager, if you could get another 5 or 10% from each person, that discretionary effort, by creating more psychological safety and trust in the group, it's worth it. So it's all about how do we get the most from people. And if we go to the next slide, if we sort of break down what is psychological safety, this is a lovely sort of just a simple way of looking at it by Amy Edmondson, who's done a lot of work in the area of psychological safety and the importance of that for teams. And there's a few things, and I'll just sort of talk about a few of them. One of them is how comfortable, and just think about yourselves now in the teams that you work in. How safe do you feel to ask for help and be vulnerable and say, I'm struggling with this, I don't know what to do, can somebody help me? And I think if we're in a team where we feel psychological safety, where it's okay to ask for help. It's okay not to be perfect, not to be the experts. It's okay to say, I've made a mistake. So think about in your team, if you make a mistake, is it blamed? Is it sort of investigated? Or is it people go, okay, how can we help you move on and move forward? So how much does the team discuss what's going well and also what's not going well? Do they feel able to actually be honest about how they feel in the team? I've just come back from 3 days at Ashridge Business School doing some work with coaching teams to help them understand that it's good to share how they feel about working with each other and discuss relationships, not just tasks. Is it okay in the team to have some conflict, some healthy conflict, and disagree with each other? And teams with good psychological safety are able to have the debate, have the discussion, disagree with each other, and that's where we get new ideas. So thinking about what's the culture you're creating. Do you do a lot of listening, or do you do a lot of talking to your teams? And I think, as Emma was saying earlier, the more we listen, the more psychological safety is around people feeling they can ask for help, and in the team feeling that you can talk, it's that old expression, truth to power. As senior leaders, are you prepared to let people disagree and give a different view? Or do you just want everyone to say yes? So I think there's lots of things that sort of come into that psychological safety. And if we go to the next slide, what can you do? Because that's the important thing. What can you do to support it? And I'm not sort of going to run through all of these things. They're sort of up there for you to look at. But treat people fairly. Are you giving the same opportunities to people that are working from home as you do to those that are in the office with you? Are you giving good projects to just those people that you know well and only those people that you trust? Or are you actually sharing out opportunities? And I'm a big believer, this might sound a little controversial, 80% of managers spend 80% of their time telling people what to do. What difference would it make if they spent 80% of their time asking the team how they felt about what they wanted to do and what their views were? So this is about leadership style. Creating psychological safety is about adapting your style. Sometimes we do have to direct and tell people what to do, but a lot of the time we could probably be a little bit more participative, a bit more democratic, use a bit more of a coaching style. And certainly in a lot of the programs that we're running now on psychological safety for leaders, it's helping them to adapt their style, to start to use more coaching rather than sort of directing. Because at the end of it, we've got to think, why are we doing this? Why is it important? And I think there's a couple of things. One is loyalty. And we talked about generational differences earlier. There is less loyalty to employers now than there was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. If we want to keep people, they've got to want to work with us, not that they have to work with us. And there's a difference. So if your manager left, would you think to yourself, oh, I'd really like to go and work with them somewhere else? Or would you go, oh, thank goodness for that, bring someone else in? So we want to work with people that we want to work with, that we have an allegiance, we have an affiliation with. So people leave managers, they don't leave companies. So if we want to keep our good people, we have to create that environment where people feel they're respected, they're wanted, and they're engaged. And then the other thing is that, yes, we talk an awful lot these days about sort of engagement. Why is that important? Well, it's really simple. There is a direct correlation between enjoyment at work, being more engaged, performing better, and then return on the bottom line. So there is a direct correlation between people feeling good about themselves, they perform better, and the company does better. And there's lots of research around that now in terms of looking at the correlation between it. And people that feel good about themselves perform better. Your role as a manager is to help people feel good about themselves so they perform better. Your role in HR is to ensure that your leaders have got the skills to do that, because they might be technically brilliant, but unless they're actually taking their teams with them, particularly at the moment, with a lot of people looking around and looking at what's open to them, that is the role of managers, to create that culture, that environment that people perform at their best. Emma, any thoughts on that from yourself?
I absolutely agree with you. I think that point between, that point about it's okay to enjoy where you work.
Yes.
That's okay, and it's okay to enjoy the people that you work with. And, and I think we forget that actually, we should enjoy what we do. We should enjoy where we work, and we should enjoy the people, enjoy working with the people that we work with. And you're absolutely right, our leaders are absolutely crucial in that, and that messaging. And, if you don't look after your people, there is somebody else out there who will. And, we know about, you mentioned there about making sure that you give work to everybody. Are you fairly distributing work? So, we're talking a lot about proximity bias. Who is it that we're giving work to? Is it the people that are sitting in the room with us or the office with us? Or, are we, ignoring the people that we can't see? And I know that's really, it's easier said than done, isn't it? Because, it's kind of immediate, isn't it? You're there, I'm going to give you this piece of work. So it just encourages, I think, managers just to think a little bit more outside the box in terms of, am I really being as kind of fair and transparent as I can be about who I'm giving work to? And, happy people perform better.
Absolutely. And I think the other little piece that I think is worth picking up on, that I think is really important to those of us in HR as well as those of us that are managing teams, is the last sort of box in there, which is the team are committed to learning together. So I think that's a really important thing that often doesn't happen in organisations. We run lots of management development programmes and people come to us for their learning, and then they're expected just to go back to work and carry on that hamster wheel of life, rolling out what they do. What are the teams doing? What are the managers and leaders doing to help the team learn together? How often do you sit down with your team and review with them? What are we doing well? What are we not doing so well? How could we work better together and get ideas from each other? And we're doing more and more work now with intact teams to help them reflect, review, give them a space to review and reflect. How are they operating? Not just so much in the task of what they're doing, but the relationships, the how they're working together. Who is included, who isn't, who's taking control? How do we actually make sure everybody's playing to their strengths? When was the last time you sat down in the team and celebrated what the team is doing well and the individual strengths of the people in that team? So I think giving teams time to reflect, to explore how they're working together and actually build those good, build positive practices and acknowledge and recognise them. So I think the teams need to be taking time to review. And I do think that's where, HR plays such an important role as an HR business partner. If you're in the learning and development field or the HR business partners, your role is to help teams reflect and practice good habits and recognise the good habits and practice them and reinforce good practice across the business. So it's not just about the more tactical HR. I think HR business partners have a responsibility to consult and help people learn as well.
I think you're right. I think learning together as a team, but also learning together as a management population. Yes. I think that we don't often, we sort of don't think about our managers as being that sort of ecosystem as well. And, yes, some managers totally get it and totally on board with the messaging. Some just need some encouragement or they're new to management, new to leadership. So I think working together and sharing that best practice, I think again is something that we don't often do because it's difficult, isn't it? We've got our day jobs to do. We haven't got time, but actually the benefits of bringing, leaders together and, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what can we learn, what can we share? I think that's really important as well. And I think that kind of leads us on to really, how can we bring people with us? Not just, bringing leaders with the kind of the what the messaging is from, the top down, but also, bringing our people with us as well. And Rosemary, what are some of the sort of tips and techniques you have for that?
I think there's a few things here, sort of 3 or 4 things really. Firstly, we've talked a little bit about inclusion, making sure you're being fair and including everybody around you. Secondly, and this might be a little controversial, start bringing people back together face to face if you can. Because honestly, the level of interaction, the level of engagement will go up exponentially. And I'm not saying people have to be in the office every day, but I'm saying make it a destination that they're coming for a reason. If you're going to have a monthly team meeting, make it face-to-face if you can do, because we learn as much and we get as much from each other in those coffee chats and the little interactions in between meetings as we do when we're sitting there on Zoom or Teams or whatever it is. Something else I would advise or sort of suggest everybody does, ask for feedback. So if you are a manager of a team, ask for feedback. What am I doing well? What's helping you succeed? What am I doing that's getting in your way? What would you like me to do differently? Now that takes a bit of personal courage, but I think it shows a little bit of sort of, what's the word for it? Sort of humility about, I'm not getting it all right. So ask for feedback. And then if you get the feedback, you've got a choice to change. So I think as managers, have individual check-ins with your people, ask them how they're feeling, as well as what they're achieving, and then ask them, what am I doing that's helping? What can I do that's going to help you be successful? So I think there's something about bringing people together face to face. There's something about asking for feedback from your teams about what they need from you. And also, the third thing I would say is remember your role as a team member. So you're either an HR manager, you're a manager of a team, but you're also a team member. You know, all of you will be in lots of different teams. So think about your role with your peers. What could you do to be a better team member? What could you do to be a better team player? Are you reaching out and supporting people that have gone a bit quiet, that have gone a bit off the radar? Are you offering help to other people in your team that you could help and support? When did you last ask your manager what help you could give them? Because the more senior we are, the more lonely it is. And sometimes our managers, directors, etc., are feeling pretty lonely up there. What are you doing to support them? And I do think for the HR managers amongst us, you are, and your role is to be a trusted advisor. So, you know, it's not, you know, then you're not there just to run around to everything they want. You are there to be a trusted advisor, act as their conscience, give support, give advice, but also do some coaching of them. So when did you last ask your managers in the organisation what do they need from you as a business partner? So for me, include people, bring people together face to face, ask for feedback, and work on developing your role as a team player as well, because that's a really important role. Does that give you some food for thought, Emma, to sort of work to?
I know, I think absolutely. And I think, you know, being more self-aware as well, and, you know, also thinking about how you're messaging, how you are delivering the messaging. So how do you communicate? You know, what type of communication style do you have? You know, are you very dictatorial? You know, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing. Are you very collegiate in the way that you encourage people to come forward with ideas? And I think that point you make about, you know, we don't know everything. Sometimes we only know what we know, and I think having that ability and that courage, as you quite rightly say, to ask for ideas, to ask people for feedback, because, you know, we only want to hear the good stuff, don't we? You know, we don't like when you think, you know, if we ask for feedback, will the floodgates open? Yeah, exactly. Stop. So, you know, I think that, you know, I think as well, I think bringing teams with you, I think a real big piece around that and a big challenge is around communication. You know, there is never a perfect solution. Is it just too much email? Is it just too much, you know, from top down? You know your teams, you know how they work, you know how they want to work, and you know how they want to hear stuff. So again, you know, think about flexing the way that you communicate, and maybe, you know, you have to kind of interpret the sort of the top down messaging a little bit more. And I think actually that really does sort of play into what you and I have been working on, Rosemary, is sort of the ability to take this one step further. So how do we take the challenges? How do we take, you know, ensuring that our teams are listened to, making sure that we communicate openly? And I think that really does start in, you know, bringing it all together. That really does start with our HR, teams, our HR leaders, but also our people leaders as well. And I'm super excited just to kind of be able to kind of run and lead a session with you, Rosemary, on how do we build this positive mindset, because it's not easy, is it, at all?
It certainly isn't. And a lot of people say to me, you know, what's new? What are the things that people are wanting to do at the moment? This is one of our most popular topics at the moment, linked to resilience. It's about building a positive mindset. I think people are tired. They're really needing help in managing all the changes that are going on. So what we're going to do in this workshop is some really interesting things, which are about, you know, discussing what influence does our mood have on us. So, you know, how do we show up every day? How aware are we of how we show up and the effect that our mood has on other people? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about sort of the importance of maintaining that positive mindset and how do we do that. So we will, in the workshop, be talking about we're doing a little personal energy audit. And what that means is, how often are you in that really high performance zone? Or are you sometimes just in that survival zone, just trying to keep going? Or do some of you sometimes feel that you're actually in complete burnout and need to just sort of step away and take time out? So how do we make sure that we stay in that high performance zone? Well, we do that by actually having times where we take a little bit of regeneration. And what do I mean by that? We take time out, whether it's doing some mindfulness, some yoga, going for a run, you know, going to see some friends. But what do we do to sort of manage our energy? And we'll all do it in different ways to make sure that when we are in that workspace, we're performing well and we're not burning out and we're not actually sort of just in survival zone. So I'm going to be talking through that sort of energy audit with you. We'll have a little chance to answer some questions about where you think you are. And then what we will do is talk about strategies for keeping in that performance zone. And also we'll talk a little bit about the work from Carol Dweck on a growth mindset. Very easy to get negative, to get a bit cynical, to think it's not going to work. We've tried this before. Well, actually, what would the benefits be if we were more open-minded to say, well, actually, there are better ways of doing things, new ways of doing things, and being courageous to try some new things. So we'll talk through various strategies for how we can improve or develop our self-talk to be more positive. We can dial down the negative self-talk and we can dial up the positive self-talk, how we can give ourselves time and space to recover from some of the high energy times that we're doing. And we'll just be sharing tools and techniques to do that. But it's a fun session. It's a very personal session. It's also the sort of session that you'll be able to share ideas with each other, but also use for yourself, use for your team, or if you're coming from the HR perspective, you know, using it with your sort of internal stakeholders as well. But I think all of us sort of probably feel much better when we come into work with that positive attitude and sort of enthusiastic, energetic approach to life, rather than thinking, oh my goodness, what's it all about? So that's what we're going to be looking at.
No, fantastic. And you know, it's great that we can offer this course. So it will be kind of small group session, will be online. So, you know, the booking details I'll be sending out, but there's some information there. So please do put that date in your diary and look out for being able to book onto that course. As Rosemary said, it's a real opportunity, whether you're in a people leader role, if you're in an HR role, to come and join, and also, you know, come and have a little taster if you're interested in running some leadership training sessions, you know, for your own team. So for your wider businesses, and again, come and join us, see what it's all about, because we can run this in-house as well for your managers and your leadership teams. So yeah, book on, and I look forward to seeing you, Rosemary, on the 10th of May, and also others as well when they join us. So thank you very much indeed. And you know, our next webinar will be at the end of March. That's going to be a case law update webinar. So do join us. Lots of things that are going on in the world of employment cases and things that you need to know about. So that leads me on to the end of the session. Rosemary, as ever, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it, and thanks for the conversation. I'm really nice as ever.
Fantastic, and it's always great to have a different voice and a different perspective, because as we said, it's not easy and we don't know everything. So thank you so much for sharing your wonderful tips on how we can, you know, be energized and motivated. I always feel super positive after I've had a conversation with you, Rosemary. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your days, everyone. This will be available on record on our YouTube channel, so I'll be sending out links to that, so do share and send me your comments and your feedback if you want to hear more about leadership training, development training. You know, our leaders are important. You know, they are your ambassadors, they're your gatekeepers as well. So, you know, if we can help at all, then please do so. But thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.